Buonasera, and welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast. PrideofDetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us. You know what to do. We are live right now on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit, and you can download the PODcast on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, wherever you get podcasts, and enjoy us. Enjoy the best Lions talk from the most rated Detroit Lions podcast on the internet. I am Chris Perfett, the adequate host, at Chris Perfett on Twitter, Perfett. Newly checkmarked, and I got it. I just want the record to show I got it for my compatriot did. The fearless leader at Detroit on Lion, Jeremy Reisman.
This is a dangerous topic. I'm not sure we want to walk down this road here because
we will.
This is an exclusive club that might not include all three of us.
Who could we possibly be talking about? Well, to bring that in, let's talk to third man, Ryan Matthews. At Ryan_POD. How's it going, Ryan?
Will likely be the last time that I do a podcast with the feds.
You don't understand. Once I got that blue check mark, like there was a whole bunch of tweet drafts that opened up. It's like these are the spicy takes. These are the Glengarry, Glenn Ross takes. These are the takes that just make you look like a total idiot all the time. It's exclusive to blue check marks.
I don't understand.
I mean, what's like higher royalty though? Like verified Twitter user or rock god?
That is true. Brian has his own intro drop on the show. No one else has that.
Yeah, I guess I have Fred Durst. I'll always have Fred Durst.
You'll always have Fred Durst. Well, this exclusively elitist now podcast is now bringing you the best Lions talk on the internet as we sit down to talk today. We're going to talk about quarterbacks a little bit, but it is the tight ends list cast today, and we will get to that in a second. But first, Jeremy, we try not to have rabbit ears too much when it comes to the national football media, just because I think Lions fans do a fantastic job of that themselves. They don't need us to help. And we've also spent this summer railing against guys like Colin Cowherds and Joy Taylor. Not Joy Taylor.
Joy. Her name is Joy. Is it Joy Taylor? I thought it was Joy Taylor. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Joy Taylor was the ESPN person, I thought. No. We've been spending the summer railing against, Colin Cowherd and Joy Taylor and other people with bad takes about Stafford or Goff or Dan Campbell. But you wanted to get back into this because we were getting very close to the season now. The rankings are coming out and for various positions. And that means that suddenly Matthew Stafford, see, I've got a different take on this than you, but Matthew Stafford's getting a lot of love and a lot of attention, and Jared Goff is getting put in the dustbin.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating to me. More so the Stafford stuff, but that's because I guess I'm obsessed with the guy. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's slightly predictable. As soon as Matthew Stafford steps out of the shadow of Detroit, he's suddenly being hailed as a top tier quarterback. He was sixth according to ESPN ran a poll of front office executives and coaches and scouts and players. He came in sixth. Last year he was 10th. And last year he had a pretty bad year. So what changed? He went to LA. And maybe it's more of a projection thing, and maybe it's just like, well, he's paired with a better team now, so he's probably going to perform better. He's certainly going to get more wins than he did in Detroit. So yeah, he's the sixth best quarterback. But to see him above Lamar Jackson on a quarterback list was nothing short of stunning to me. And not that I completely disagree with it. I probably still would put Lamar Jackson above him. Well, we'll get to our QB list cast in a couple weeks here. But that never would have happened in the past dozen years. Never would have happened in the past dozen years, and I just find that quite interesting. I have a couple of theories as to why, but I'll let you guys jump in here first.
Yeah, with the Matthew Stafford stuff, what I find kind of obvious is what you already pointed out, Jeremy. Like, I think that this was all kind of expected. It was just a matter of time until it happened, and I think a list like this where it's, having, the opinion of league executives and scouts and players and things like that. It's an opportunity for all of those people to kind of say, well, you know, these new circumstances are going to put him in a better position to succeed. And the thing that I find really interesting is looking at ESPN's projections for what Stafford's going to do. He's going to have like pretty much like the same year that he had last year.
Very
Like
pedestrian.
the 2021 projections for Matthew Stafford are 4,500 yards, 25 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, and that seems like Ryan Tannehill puts up better numbers than that. And Ryan Tannehill's a guy who received some votes, but was kind of characterized as being like inefficient guy, but he's just kind of like a plug for Tennessee's overall offense, which is based on running. I think with the Rams offense, I think the expectation is Stafford is going to somehow be unlocked with Sean McVay. And I think that those things are inextricably linked. Like,
Sure.
It almost seems like Stafford's making his way to the quarterback whisperer. And if anybody has, been in Detroit and not lived under a rock, like there have been quarterback whisperers for Matthew Stafford. The first one was Jim Caldwell.
True.
And then it was Jim Bob Cooter. And Stafford peaked at times, like I think we kind of waxed poetic about the 2016 season so much. But at the same time, like that was a 9-7 year. And at the end of the day, like everything in the NFL is measured in wins and losses. And, Stafford's not the only guy who's getting this kind of rub, right? Like, I mean, we see guys like Marvin Jones, who all of a sudden now he's going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and people can pull up Pro Football Reference and be like, whoa, look at all these numbers. And hey, now he's with Trevor Lawrence. And oh my goodness, like he's going to be like one of their top targets. It's like Marvin Jones has been doing this shit.
Yeah.
Like Matthew Stafford's been doing this shit. It's just a matter of them entering different situations. And I think it's nothing more than like off-season fodder, to be honest. Like it's the doldrums of the offseason, and it's an opportunity for us to kind of do some hand-wringing over rankings. And it's, I don't know.
So I think for me, I maybe it's because I've been listening to some other people who are still kind of down on Stafford, but the reasons for them to be down on Stafford are pretty laughable. It's still his record against winning teams, which, I mean, if the Rams start coming out here and stinking some games against some of these teams, that will come up right away. But it's not for a lot of people. I don't know. I heard one host, one sports talk radio guy who was invoking the playoff game against the Cowboys, or invoking games from 10 years ago as proof Stafford is overrated. I can't buy into that. I have hold forever that you mentioned Jim Caldwell, Ryan. I think he became a very different quarterback under Jim Caldwell. He cleaned up a lot of his mistakes. He cleaned up a lot of the issues we had with him, protecting the ball, and he was fantastic. I think the new attention to Stafford, on where it comes from those rating him now, I get why Lions fans think it was a snub before, and now he's in a new place. We're hyping him up, but I just look what he has in Los Angeles, and I think it's part of the calculus here. No quarterback is an island, and I just think that nobody was going to give those accolades to Stafford when he didn't have Calvin Johnson, or he was playing, or his offensive coordinator was Darrell Bevel. But he's playing with Sean McVay now. He's under a Sean McVay team. He's got Cooper Kupp. He's got Robert Woods.
He's got a defense.
And a defense. Well, and I mean, I don't know what LA's run game is like. I don't think it's great, but still, like, he's got weapons, and he's got an offensive line, and he's got, receivers, and he's got a good supporting cast around him. I think it's less about where he went, and just he is going to a better position. We can hype up Darrell Bevel all he wants. Darrell Bevel was not in Detroit. Those offenses were not great. Stafford was pulling them out on his own at the end of the day. And yeah, I don't know. I think that I get where the snub feeling comes from, but at the same time, it's a better position, and that can't be denied. And, we do our list casts in a positional vacuum, but I think for a lot of people in the rankings, you want to be right, and the best thing to help you be right is the circumstances of where you are.
Yeah. There's a couple ways I want to take this conversation, but the first is with this like kind of Detroit versus everybody mentality that everyone's taking on because of this. That all these Lions stars suddenly go elsewhere and they're getting more attention and things like that. And I think some of them just think like, oh, the media hates the Lions, so once they're gone. And while I'm not feeding directly into that, I think there is at least a little bit something into it. And the most telling thing for me was Kyle Shanahan last week when he joined the Flying Coach podcast with Sean McVay and Peter Schrager. He went and the reason why I think Stafford is getting all this hype and we can get into in a second whether maybe it's now going in the opposite direction to a point where maybe he's getting overhyped. But I think the reason he's getting all this hype now is just he's simply getting more attention. Kyle Shanahan said specifically, like, I knew he was pretty good, but once he was on the trading block, I realized I got to go watch this guy's film. And when I watched that guy's film, that guy was a hell of a lot better than I thought he was. And so you have to imagine a lot of people in the NFL did that exact same thing. When they realized Matthew Stafford was on the block, they looked at tape, and they're like, he's this good? And it's simply a matter of fact, like, no one's paying attention to the Lions, and I hate to say this, but why should they? Why should they have paid attention to the Lions in the past 5 years? They made the playoffs once in that time. They're not good. They weren't good. And so
it was a terrible team under Matt Patricia. Yeah. There's no other way around it. It was a team that just cratered so hard and would not stop cratering. And they were bad, for 3+ years, and they weren't great near the end with Jim Caldwell either. Like, the last time I saw them get that kind of attention that was deserved was 2016. And I think some of us said they were kind of overachieving with those games they were coming back from.
Yeah.
So they went from like a little bit overachieving to just they weren't good for 4 years.
So it's not a matter of fact that the media hates the Lions. It's that the Lions have not made themselves media worthy. Matthew Stafford played in 3 playoff games.
That's how many people. If Allen took the world by storm too, right?
Yeah. If Matthew Stafford made the playoffs every other year, if the Lions, because I don't want to put it all on Matthew Stafford, maybe there's more. There'd be more of a narrative, and not simply because he's making the playoffs, just because the Lions are simply there in the stratosphere. Instead, they're playing in the shadows. No one cares, and I can't blame them because the Lions just weren't creating any buzz. So now that Matthew Stafford is out in the public, now that he's with a team that is generating buzz, he's getting more respect. Now, I'd love to ask you guys, do you think he's getting too much respect now? Because that's an interesting take that is suddenly growing, not only here in Detroit from guys that from it's interesting. Some of them are the people that have hated Stafford for a long time. Some of them, I think, are Stafford supporters that are just sick of hearing his name, so saying, "Oh, he's overrated now." But I'm curious as to what you guys think. Do you think there's a chance that Stafford is now in the opposite direction, where people are expecting too much out of him?
I don't think that people are expecting too much out of him, because at the end of the day, are we keeping this in the frame of reference of him being rated as the 6th best quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Last year he was ranked 10th in this list, and this year he's ranked 6th. And like you said, Jeremy, he just went to a better situation. The last time Matthew Stafford had a defense that contributed to the other half of football, the Lions had one of the best seasons that they've had probably in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
When the 2014 team, when you had a top-ranked defense, and that's what he's going to in Los Angeles. I think Chris mentions the weapons that are on offense. I think it's more important what the team is on defense. You talk about the Los Angeles Rams. You talk about a team that in the past however many years, since Sean McVay, they've missed the playoffs once. I think in 2019 when they went 9-7. Before then it was 11-5, and it was 13-3, and it was the Super Bowl, and it was last year. And the only reason why the Los Angeles Rams made the playoffs last year is because of their top-ranked defense.
Right. Around the league, that team, that Stafford was seen as the missing piece. Like, that's all the Rams needed was a top-tier quarterback. That's what he was seen, right? Like, sorry, Ryan, continue. I just wanted to throw that in. It's like that was the opinion of the league. It's like the Rams didn't have a quarterback.
Yeah, because they were relying on Jared Goff had problems with his hand and had to have surgery on that, and then They're relying on John Wolford. So I see how Matthew Stafford is the missing ingredient for that drink to get stirred in Los Angeles. What it boils down to though is like it's a wins and loss league, and I'll take it back to Ryan Tannehill. Who gave a shit about Ryan Tannehill when he was in Miami with the Dolphins? Everybody wrote him off. And then last season, 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He had a better season than Matthew Stafford's probably had in the past 4 years. And he barely receives votes because he's handing the ball to Derrick Henry, and that's the guy who gets the rub. It's all about where the focus is, and it's this invisible hand that kind of guides these things. And I don't know. I might start calling it Ryan Tannehill syndrome if this kind of takes off, because truly, this is a guy like nobody cared about when he was in Miami. He was written off as he had the knee injury, comes back to Tennessee, and I think Ryan Tannehill was like the sneaky guy that like all of a sudden showed up, and they were like, oh, this guy can really play. Well, yeah, Matthew Stafford's been kind of doing the same thing, and like now he's getting an opportunity on a bigger stage where he's actually playing meaningful football. We'll see if he's playing meaningful football games, but that's the idea, right? Is that they're like Chris said, this one piece away, and that guy ends up being Matthew Stafford. So at the end of the day, it's a wins and losses league, and I'm not saying it's quarterback wins at all whatsoever. Like I'm not trying to get Mike Payton's panties in a bunch. What I'm trying to say is, like what Jeremy's pointing out, the media is going to pay attention to the teams that are actually doing something. The Lions haven't done shit in the past 5 years.
But the interesting thing to me is it's not just the media. Like this poll, Kyle Shanahan, it proves that the league is doing that too, right? Like they're only concerning themselves with the good teams. It's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, that's maybe Shanahan. Yeah. That's kind of. I'm a little cautious of using Shanahan to extrapolate the league, because there's a few things I want to say. First off, like I want to get to the wins in a second. I know I've seen some people saying like, how fair is it to put him 6 when he hasn't played a down for the Rams? Okay, but nobody's putting Tom Brady down just because he never played a down for the Bucs last year. That's not realistic. The other thing too is, sorry, go on, Jim.
I was just gonna say I have a firm belief that Stafford has been a quarterback in the 6 to 10 range for the past 5, 6, 7 years. Really, yes. Ever since Jim Caldwell came to town, like when he got things settled down, he's been a 6 to 10 quarterback. So it doesn't bother me that he's 6. Lamar Jackson under him is kind of wild though.
Yeah, the things I want to say is that I agree that it's not a QB wins kind of situation, even though I've heard some old heads out there that are arguing for that. It's like, oh, hey, he hasn't won his record against winning teams, hasn't won a playoff games. The playoff record will hang over him regardless. But I think we're also in an era too where, again, like as I said, it's about what's around you. No quarterback is just an island. And yeah, it's not about quarterback wins, but it is about how much you can win those games. Are you in a position to actually win those games? And he went to a better situation in Los Angeles. There's no other way around that. He's gone to a better situation in Los Angeles, and he's going to get the pub for that. It's not because Los Angeles is a better market. It's because they're a better team, period, hard stop. And you might not think that's fair to then rank a quarterback higher because they go to a better team, but damn it, it does affect their numbers at the end of the day. It does affect what they can do. It's why I try not to look at a quarterback as the end all be all, because it's a piece of the engine. It's not the full engine itself. My God.
Is this
but
card
we do
talk?
that all the time. It is not card talk. It is absolutely not card talk.
Well, go ahead.
Can I one quick point to what, kind of what you were saying, Jeremy, and then also what Chris kind of just touched on, but like I think everybody in Detroit is kind of in this agreement that like Stafford has been, like you said, Jeremy, in that 6 to 10 range. So I don't know who this is so surprising to. I think as fans, they get a little defensive because it's like, well, we've been seeing this all the time. Why haven't you been seeing this? And that's where the craw kind of gets stuck in your teeth. And the thing about Lamar Jackson, I'll say real quick, is I think the reason why Stafford gets a rub over him is because Stafford's in this new sexy spot with Sean McVay.
Yeah, we've seen Lamar going into playoffs and
that's the thing. And now it's like, well, Lamar, you go sit in your corner because you haven't won a playoff game. And it's going to be the same thing where if Lamar doesn't win playoff games, he'll continue to get walked back. And I mean, who knows? He'll even even be, relegated to, should this guy be replaced? Should the Ravens move on to another type of quarterback or something like that? But it's a wins and losses league, and I'm going to keep on just pounding that drum.
Well, before we close out and head to Listcast, we have to talk about the other side of the coin here, which is Jared Goff.
Jared Goff, all right,
the guy that's actually on the Lions team. Obviously, he didn't make the ESPN polls top 10.
No,
but he was
Detroit getting snubbed. Detroit versus everybody.
But I mean, to be fair, like 26th on PFF's ranking, that's got to be a little crazily low, right? Like that's
among quarterbacks.
Yeah. 26. Okay, yeah. I mean, basically bottom tier quarterback on PFF's projection.
This is the problem with Jared Goff, is he's a cipher. How many fans have we talked to over and like fan analysts have we talked to over the months, Jeremy, who believe that, including our own John Whitaker. John, I know you're watching on Twitch right now. I'm going to put you on the spot. There are more than enough people watching this team who believes that Jared Goff should not play a single fucking down because he's just that bad. Because that, like, the idea of moving forward for him for more than 1 year is incomprehensible. That he's just that bad. You saw what he was in LA. Bam. No reason to continue writing. Just close the book right now. That's the opinion of a lot of people in Detroit. So why shouldn't that opinion then trickle out to other people doing these rankings sometimes? Like, I don't agree with it. I think there is a good chance for Goff to surprise people. I don't know. I don't think his ceiling is that high, but I certainly don't think that he is 26, but I get it. I get it because that's where the conversation has gone. I get it because that's what the recency bias shows, is that Jared Goff, his final years in LA, was not a serviceable quarterback. And the only question you have on your mind is, where does that trend line go? Does it continue to go down into the earth, not stonks? Or does it, or do we find the median somewhere between when he got to the Super Bowl and last year? Is there a higher median, or does it keep cratering?
Right. And again, it's the opposite reaction of Stafford. Like, he's in a worse situation now. Like, he doesn't have great wide receivers. He's in a new offense. The Lions' run game, while could be very well improved from last year, it's still very much a work in progress as well. Defense, even more of a work in progress. So I know on the surface it just looks like you put this guy in Detroit and suddenly he sucks. You take this guy out of Detroit and suddenly he doesn't suck. But it's really just a victim of circumstances, I think, with both players. And I think Goff, and we talked about this a little bit on the Green Room Q&A, but like, I could go either way with Goff. I think he's probably a middle of the pack quarterback who could either regain some of the mojo that he had in his second and third year in Los Angeles, or, like you said, that downward trend could continue. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going to happen, but 26 seems a little rude.
It is a little rude. I'm going to let Ryan talk in a second, but the one thing I do bite back every time is people, because I've seen this from a lot of people too, worrying that the current regime in Detroit likes Goff, and they're worried that means they'll stick with him. Look, if he goes out and has a stinker of a season, you don't stick with that. Okay? Like, nobody sticks with that, but like, for this season, you give him a shot. If he wants to pull out the rope to hang himself, by all means, like, he'll do that. If he flies, then consider it. But I don't know. Ryan, your thoughts on Goff? I'm sorry, I've talked too much.
No, I think it comes back to your point, Chris, about situation. And I know that, Jeremy kind of outlined it, and it might seem a little unfair to just say, well, I mean, who is 25th on that list, Jeremy? Do you know who is 25th on that list of the quarterback PFF rankings? It was Justin Fields, a guy who hasn't played a single down in the NFL. A guy who isn't even projected to be the team starter right now. So I guess what I'm, I mean, 24 on the list is just funny because it's the New Orleans Saints quarterbacks. Like, it's two guys. It's Jameis Winston / Taysom Hill. But so that's what I'm saying.
It is situation they're going into. Yeah.
It's situation. It's nothing else. And it has nothing. I think it has more to do about like what the team is projected to do than it is the guy who's in that spot. And I'm, putting him at 26, a little disrespectful. I agree. But he's also kind of in. I'm not going to get too worked up over the number because I think it's more of this like tiered ranking system, and like the guys that are around him that are below him actually, they all kind of fit in this spot where it's like this is going to be these are the guys that like are having an opportunity as a reclamation project, and this is their opportunity to bounce back or not, because the guys below him are Cam Newton at 27, Sam Darnold at 28 now with the Carolina Panthers, Tua, who had a
That's
really
disrespectful
up and
there.
down season in 29. I don't know. He got benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Okay. But I agree that it is kind of
Yeah,
a situation where you're going to. And what are we projecting? Like, I hate to say it, but again, looking at the national media, I know there's a lot of Lions fans who think they could overachieve this year. Most national media, most mock drafts I see, Lions are getting the first overall pick. That's just showing you where this team is where this team is projected right now. Top 5 pick, which means you're going to be bottom 5 in the league. And that's just the end of it. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we do need to get into the list cast. This is a very cursed list cast. Anyone who knows the history of our tight ends list cast knows that there is a curse we cannot shake with this list. If someone's, there is a good chance someone who we hype up on this list is just, you're doomed. And I hate to say it, but we're going to open up this box like in 7. What's in the box? What's in the box? We have to do this together. Please brace yourself. Tight End List Cast is next on the Pride of Detroit POD cast.